Hello, Deborah Carmona here. We are making, I can't take this off. We are making masks today. As you know, we are in a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic of a global scale. And there seems to be an outcry, a shortage of face masks and other equipment. I can't do much. I am a seamstress and I do keep a lot of fabrics and sewing notions, and I do quilting, so I keep scraps left over from a project. Like I made a skirt for my granddaughter out of this fabric, and so I had a little bit of this color left over and a bunch of other scraps that I throw all my small scraps into a basket because I know someday they could work into a quilt. And so I tend to keep that kind of stuff. Well, so I said, well, I can help out. I mean, it's not much. It's a small job. I can make masks and contribute to the cause. Well, I began, and I have a stack of masks cut out right here, ready to sew. And I used up all my elastic, and then I was like stuck. I needed more elastic. I went to Walmart. They were all out. So it's not just a toilet paper shortage, but we have an elastic shortage. And I went to Joann Fabrics. They didn't have any. I went to Hobby Lobby. They didn't have any. Well, I came home and I made a post on Facebook, and somebody donated some elastic cord to me, which looks like this. It's fairly thin. They gave me some. I said, okay, that'll take me for a little while. I'll use up that as much as I can. And I went to Amazon. I said, well, surely I can buy some from Amazon. Well, I placed an order, and I saw that, okay, here it is in March. I placed an order, and they say it won't be available until mid-April. And then I get an email after I placed my order, and they say it won't show up until May. Between May 5th and May 27th. So basically the whole month of May. So for 2 months, I won't have any elastic. So I said, oh, great. How do I sew these? So I've been scrambling, trying to find other options. So this video, I'm going to show you the different options that I came up with to sew masks, face masks. Using my quilter's template and my cutter's wheel, I cut out fabric 6 inches by 9 inches. Then I also cut interfacing to put as a liner in between the two pieces of fabric. Cut them also 6 inches by 9 inches. These are all cut out in this COVID pandemic that's spread worldwide. I have been making masks out of some of my leftover scrap material, and I used up all of my 1/4 inch elastic, and I can't get any more. Walmart is out, Hobby Lobby is out, Joann Fabric is out. I had a little bit of this 1/8 inch elastic, and I used up all of that, and that works. And then somebody saw my post on Facebook that I couldn't find any elastic, and they gave me this stuff, which it's a 1/2 inch wide, but it's fairly thin. And so I've been using that, and it'll go around the ears just fine, so that'll work. So I'm using this elastic cord. I cut it 6 inch lengths. Out of one bundle, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can do 5 masks with one bundle. Now I am putting a piece of interfacing between any non-woven interfacing will work, lightweight to medium. Between the pieces of fabric, this is cotton. It is 6 inches by 9 inches Some of them I actually cut 6.5 inches by 9. That's, you start off with a rectangle piece. And I cut them up and I organize them, like I kind of alternate them. So I've got a set. And I'm going to show you how I put them together. I'm going to put my right sides together. And of course I have the interfacing is attached. I think this is fusible. I haven't ironed it on yet, but the interfacing is on the back side of one of the pieces. And then I have my 6-inch strip, and what I'm going to do, so I just fold this back. This is my front side. I don't want to put it right on the edge because I don't want it to catch in the seam allowance. So I put it about a 1/2 inch away and pin that down. Make sure that the same side is, and do the same here. Pin it a 1/2 inch down away from the edge. Okay, and then I pick it up and I want to match up the corners so that that it's square here. I put another pin here on the inside. And I do the same whether I'm using 1/4 inch elastic or 1/8 inch elastic. It's going to look like this. It'll flatten out as you sew it. Okay, so I put it just about a 1/2 inch away from the edge. Right now, Joann Fabrics is actually offering a kit. They'll give you about 1 yard of fabric and 1 yard of interfacing. And since they're out of elastic, they're giving ribbon. The problem with ribbon, I mean, it can work, but I'm thinking that ribbon is very satiny and smooth and slippery, and it might slip off the head. So I think fabric would be better, and I don't really feel like cutting out strips of fabric. That's why I've decided I'm going to use double fold bias tape instead when I need it to coordinate with some of the colors that I have. Okay, now I'm ready to sew. I'm going to begin on one of my long sides. We're going to turn this when we put this together, so we need an opening. I'm going to have an opening right here. So I'm going to start on this side, and I'm going to do about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, or maybe a little less. It could be 3/8 of an inch. The corners, you want to make sure that you're not getting too close. You don't want to sew over your elastic on that side. This end you obviously will. Now you can see how it buckles up, but once you pull it, it flattens down. Whenever you turn on the corners, always put your needle down and your press-a-foot up, and then you put your press-a-foot back down when you're ready to do the other side. This side we sew all the way down. One more stitch. Put the needle down, press-a-foot up, rotate or pivot, back down again. And I want to leave a gap right about here, like about 3 fingers width. So I'm just going to sew a couple of inches here. Now we shall remove our pins. Now before we turn it, we clip off the corners. That'll just help us to have cleaner, neater corners, a little less bulk. Now between the two fabrics. Turn it inside out. I take my finger and push out the corners, and then just to help it a little bit I use because my scissors are blunt end, I just push the corners out just a little bit more. Okay, this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to take it to the iron and I'm going to press it. One side that's open, just make sure those little ends are folded down. The raw edges are folded inside. First I iron it flat. Okay, now we're going to put some pleats in it. We take it like this and we fold it down with a pleat. This is about 1 inch wide. You want to try to get at least 3 pleats. This will make it easier to sew. Put the pleats in. And we'll get one more. Try to make it look even. Okay, now I'm going to pin my pleats. Now this puts a lot of bulk on these outside edges, so as you sew it, you might need to, it would be advisable to pull your pins out when you get to that section because you might break a needle. Because it's, or if you do sew over the needles, sew very slow. Now when you're going this way, because the folds are this way, you could just hold it and sew down, but when you go on the opposite way, it's easier to have pins to hold it in place. Okay, now we are ready to sew. And since I keep changing colors, I'm doing all my red, I'm using red thread because I like things to look, you know, decorative and well coordinated. I'm not going to mix match threads, so I'm using red thread. For a lot of them I've just used white thread. Okay, set my needle down and I'm going to go ahead and pull that first pin out so it's fairly close to the edge. I like to have my needle down whenever I pick up the press-a-foot. Take out the next needle. Take out the last needle. Okay, now go all the way down the side. The corner, put a needle down and pivot. Okay, take out the first needle, hold this down. Second needle, oops, I can't reach. Take out the last needle. And then we go down this side. Now I want to make sure that the elastic is in there very solid. So I'm going to go down the side and then back down again so it'll have at least 3 rows of stitching, and I'm going to try to sew right on the same line. That way the elastic is very secure. You can either reverse it or you could just pivot and do it this way. Do the same on this side. There we have our mask with coordinating straps. Okay, so I've run out of the elastic cord and I have no more elastic. So now I'm going to use double fold bias tape what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew down this edge. We need to cut about 20 inches because this time it has to tie around the head, so it needs to be a lot longer, which means you can only do one mask with one package of bias tape. So I try to coordinate some colors that would go. I think that might work. I'm not going to be able to do too many of this color. This is what they look like with long strips, and they would just tie around the head. It comes like this, so I put it together and then I sew down the seam so it's just one single piece. I was able to cut 4 and I only have a little bit left. There's not enough of this to do any more, so one package will only do 1. So it doesn't go as far as elastic, which means it's a little more expensive. Okay, so how do we put this together? I will start, I think it'd be easier to move that out of the way. I will start by placing my strip on the edge. I want it at least a half inch away from the outside edge, because I don't want it to get caught in the seam allowance. Now I'm going to have this thing open at one side, so I'm going to take all of my strips and I'm going to have them go this way so that they will come to the middle and then come out through the hole. Do the same thing on the other side. You can do it that way if you want to. Okay, see how they are? I have them coming from the sides to the center. Now I put this right sides together and we will pin it. And so my strips will hang out the side here. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to stitch around like that. Leave an opening. I will clip the corners, turn it from the hole, the slot that's going to be right there. And we just need to press it. Now, I did not sew across the ends. Now, what you could do if you're worried about fraying, but I don't think it'll fray, is you could just tie a little knot at the ends, and that gives it sort of a finished edge. It doesn't need to be sewed or anything. It's cut on the bias, so it's not going to fray. So you could just leave it like that. For this one, since I tied one, I'll just go ahead and I'll tie all of them. Just try to work a knot and try to pull that knot really close to the end. Okay, with this one, I have it pressed, and I'm not going to use pins this time to show you that it can be done as a time saver. That's where pressing it really helps. I'm just going to hold it with my fingers. Oops, it slipped. Hold on. This side's a little harder to do because the folds are going that direction. So I gotta take it a little slow and a little careful. Having nails helps. Actually, with the straps, it's easy to hold it down too. Alright, now I want to reinforce the sides. So here's the mask, and it will be tied around the head. It has long straps. When I'm sewing, crocheting, knitting, or some other project, maybe drawing, sketching, planning out an art lesson, oftentimes, or making cards, I will often listen to somebody on YouTube. There's a lot of great people on YouTube that share a lot of information, and I like to keep up with world events and things that are happening. So there's a lot of people that I follow on Twitter, and I learn about them, and then I go to YouTube and I find their YouTube channel, and I educate myself about world events and happenings. And so I will often be listening to something while I'm busy working on a project that I'm doing with my hands. Masks that I have cut out ready to put together, but I don't have enough supplies. Somebody suggested hairbands. I'm not quite sure how that would work. I cut one in half, but I really feel like it's too short because that only measures 5 inches. And I've been cutting these strips 6 inches. I have this pinned in here. I'm not cutting it. I'm leaving it whole. I'm going to show you what it looks like. You see the elastic is right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew between here, and then I'm going to sew down on the sides. And back stitching so that that thread that's sewed in the middle is secure, because maybe, I don't know, maybe I won't have to sew over the middle. The reason I don't want to sew over the actual elastic is because this whole thing's going to be like shorter, and it's going to create a problem with sewing it. So that's why I'm only just going to like leave a hole. So on this side, I'll pull it out of the way. On this side, I'm just going to sew the seams. I haven't put this side in yet. Alright, let me show you how I'm putting this in here. So one package, I'm only going to be able to do 3 masks, 2, 2, and 2. One package of these. This is how I pin it in. Whoops. We're going to put this in here. And for right now, I'm just kind of separating it. I'm not going to be sewing over the elastic from here to there, so I'm leaving an opening right there and here and there. And I'm just going to sew on this last part, this side. Honest truth is, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm experimenting and trying to figure this out to see if it's even going to work, and showing you how it can be done. They say that necessity is the mother of invention, so we will try and see if we can invent how to do this. Clip my corners, make sure my pins are out. Can't cut the corners completely because I haven't actually sewed this part. I could make that hole smaller. I could sew this way just a little bit as long as I pull the elastic out of the way. Okay, with doing that little tiny stitch, I can actually cut the corners down a little closer. Okay, now let's turn it inside out and see what we've got. Right now it's just an open hole. It actually is not sewed over where the elastic comes out because I have not cut the elastic. The elastic is a hole. This doesn't have a staple in it. Why does this one have a staple in it? This thing's made in China. Oh yes, made in China. Well, goodness, you don't want to have a staple right next to your face, and why in the world is there a staple there? Is this thing going to come apart when I take that staple out? Well, that's a stupid thing. Oh, look at that. Will you look at that? This is what you can expect from China. So, there was a staple in it, and as soon as I take that staple out, look what happens. The band is cut. I didn't cut it. This thing is stapled together. A headband. Cheap junk from China. Right, well, I can actually put that together. I could sew it. Because made in the USA is better. Alright, it's going to be hard to hold it though. I could sew it together, I think. The hard part is holding it. So I'm just going to do a straight stitch just so I can kind of hold it. Come on, move. Well, I think I only got like 1 or 2 stitches in there. A zigzag stitch would probably do better. Like 1 stitch in there, so I'm going to come back in here. I'm temporarily holding it with a pin. I'll have to take that pin out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a zigzag stitch. I don't think it's going to go through with that pin in it. It's going to be hard to hold. I'll use my seam ripper. Maybe I can hold it together with the seam ripper. I'm just going to zigzag over that area. Okay, now it's got a funny little rough spot, but I could pull that to the inside. But it's better than being held by a staple. Okay, so it's got a rough little edge. So I'll just make sure that that part will be inside. So I'll just pull this. Hey, did I actually put a stitch in there? I tried to avoid doing that. Okay, so it's not so easy. I don't want to fray the elastic. Oh dear, dear, dear. Not easy task here. Yeah, I do have a stitch goes into that needle, and I'm so afraid with my bad eyesight I won't be able. Okay, this one seems to be, oh, I caught this side too. A little too close. Got 1 stitch in there. Well, so this is going to have an ugly little part on it because I had to repair it because it was shoddy material made in China. The next challenge will be pressing it. I can press it flat like this, but getting those pleats in there without getting this elastic all weird is going to be the hard part. Well, I ironed it, but I don't know how this is going to work. Especially since, I don't know, we'll have to see. So I don't want the elastic to bunch up. I can pull the elastic out on one side, so that makes the elastic shorter. That way the elastic is not bunched up inside. One side I caught it with the needle, so it won't work. I don't think I'm going to sew on the elastic at all. I think I'm just going to keep it loose inside. I think that's the only way this is going to work. I'll sew on this side of it. I might get a stitch or 2 in it, but if I have this pulled all the way out, it should still work. Okay. Let's try stitching this. I'm not going to stitch as close to the edge as I have been doing with the other methods. Oops, I'm on zigzag. Back to straight stitch. And I am going to pull these because there's a lot of thickness here. I'm trying not to sew on the elastic. I may catch one or two. Okay. So I'm actually sewing probably a 1/4 inch away from the outside edge because I'm trying not to sew on the elastic. Looks like I may have caught it a little bit, but at least I don't have the elastic all bunched up in there because I pulled it out before sewing that. Okay, so yeah, these hairbands can work, and these are the extra long ones. More like a, it's not for a ponytail type, it's more like a headband. The ponytail types are a lot shorter. They're not big, they're not going to work. And even these, they looked like they were a little bit longer, but they won't work. Even if you cut them in half, it would be too short. I know it's stretchy, but I might do one just to see if it... Okay, so I made it work. It was an experiment. These seem kind of long. Let me try it on. Well, it's very long. It would hang off my face. It's not tight enough. Much too big. But it could fit a fat person. It could fit somebody with a really big head. So, my conclusion to the hairbands, it doesn't work. Unless you're making it for somebody with a really big fat head. So we'll toss that idea out. I suppose you could cut these and make them a little shorter, but you saw the trouble I had joining that. And as I examined these made from China, I see a glue where the two ends are put together. Wonder how long that will last. So that's that. Right. I decided to try it on my husband because he's a bigger head than me. And it was too big. It was too loose. But you can tie a knot on both ends and that will work. So, okay, we have another solution. Not the recommended one, not the preferred one, but in dire circumstances, it can work. Okay, I'm going to try another option. Satin ribbon. It's what Joann Fabric is issuing, only they were passing out much skinnier ribbon than this, but it is slippery and it's satiny, so it might not work that great, but again, you don't have to do a lot of finishing work with it. You need to measure out 20 inches and we need to cut 4 strips. The process is the same as would be for adding the bias tape. Really no different. set mask with long ribbons, satin ribbons, and you don't have elastics. But I don't know how well these will tie. I suppose if you tie a knot, they'll hold. But I worry about the slipperiness of them coming loose. Well, I hope you got some ideas. If you are taking on the task of sewing masks to help out with this worldwide epidemic, I hope that you got some ideas that you can produce some masks, and hopefully we will get through this as we pull together as a country, as a world, and people helping each other, people looking out for one another, and everybody doing what they can. And we will get through this, and we will have brighter days ahead of us on the other side of this. If this is your first time visiting my YouTube channel, I'm not just a seamstress, I am an artist. I am a do-it-yourself kind of a person. I do home repairs. I raise chickens. I have a garden. I do crafts. One of my popular subjects on YouTube is sock bunnies. I think I have probably the #1 sock bunny video on YouTube. It's reached almost 1 million views. It's really cute. I think it's the cutest bunny on YouTube, really. It really is. I have a whole series of videos on making sock bunnies, and I do have other ideas up my sleeve of other types of sock bunnies that I plan to do. I also have basket making tutorials if you're interested in learning how to coil pine needle baskets, and those videos are growing in popularity. And so there's a lot of stuff on my channel. I can't even at this moment, I can't think of everything that's on my channel. But you might want to subscribe and see what else that I have to offer, and get notifications. Ring the little bell if you want to get notifications of whenever I post a new video. Oh yes, I make costumes. I'm also editing a video right now on a really cool costume that was very challenging to make. And I have upcoming costumes that I will be making and creating, which will be video tutorials in the near future. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to my channel. And I thank you for watching, and may God bless you and your efforts and all you do, and God bless our world, and may we come through this with flying colors. Thanks for watching.